With your CIGTV News Update, I'm Donna Bush. Thanks for joining us on this Friday. The start of the 2019 hurricane season is just 8 days away, and Hazard Management Cayman Islands, as well as various government agencies, are in full preparation mode for any hurricanes which may come our way this hurricane season. HMCI Director Danielle Coleman explains more about the event, while Matthew Forbes of the Governor's Office tells us more about their involvement.
Emergency Operations Centre has fully activated this morning on a hurricane tabletop Cali exercise. Now, Cali is a hurricane. It's the worst case scenario for Cayman, we think. But again, unlike previous years, we're actually focusing on the aftermath, what happens after the storm has passed. The all clear has already been given in the NEAC by the National Weather Service. But what are we doing now? How are we picking up the pieces? How are we making sure Cayman recovers? How is the whole National Emergency Operations Centre structure operating to do their part? So just for information, under the structure, we have 17 emergency support teams and 4 cluster groups. So we have the executive group, the policy group, and the National Emergency Operations Centre. The policy group has joined us for this exercise today, but the internal exercise is really for the coordination of the NEAC, the National Emergency Operations Centre. And under that, we have 4 clusters. We have human concerns, emergency response, infrastructure, and support services. And all of those guys have a key part to play in this response. It's really important that everyone plays their role. But unlike previous years, again, we're actually having a conversational base so everyone understands what we're all doing, how the whole picture fits together, and how we're making sure it's a really effective response.
The Governor's Office plays a role in disaster response in the Cayman Islands. Our main role is to basically liaise with outside agencies, including the crisis centre that would be set up in the UK, foreign governments, and bringing in things like military assets and other assets that the UK might be able to bring in to assist the situation, as we saw in BVI during 2017. Our staff will also be embedded with the Emergency Operations Centre here in Cayman, but we will provide that link with the outside world.
And dozens of civil servants participated in the National Emergency Operational Full Tabletop exercise from Thursday night through to Friday. Finally, this Friday, the ACCP 34th Annual AGM and Conference was held right here in the Cayman Islands this week. On Friday, our camera crew spoke with RCIPS Commissioner, Mr. Derek Byrne, who explained the importance of the event to the Cayman Islands and how the 4-day event went.
Lots and lots of interesting speakers over the 4 days. Lots of exchanges of information, looking at international best practice across the region. We've had our international law enforcement colleagues from federal and local law enforcement agencies in the United States, representatives from Interpol and from the Foreign Commonwealth Office, National Crime Agency, including the Child Exploitation Unit. So a lot of people coming together to talk about common purpose issues around law enforcement, policing, safety and security, border protection. Lots of really interesting speakers. Some elements of leadership have been obviously pushed in there as well, because a lot of leadership challenges for policing. The changing global environment is very much to the fore. What's happening and what's emerging there is that while we tend to talk about traditional crime, guns and drugs, and they're hugely serious, they impact our communities locally. There's a real cyber threat emerging. Child exploitation is something that's concerning, and it's rising across the region. And thankfully we had some industry partners here, and I mentioned Facebook in particular, who have a massive global reach. So they've been talking to us about how they can assist us in law enforcement across the region, particularly when you have young children on Facebook and some risks that may be around that. We've been talking about cyber internet safety, cyber security. We have been talking about border security and our own CBC, newly merged CBC. We're here this morning presenting on the merger that they've just undertaken, commenced February, talking about the advantages and the strategic direction they're taking with CBC. So that was of interest to some of our colleagues across the region who still have separate customs and immigration, that they see the synergies, and there seems to be an interest that some people are saying maybe it's a model that could be adopted across the region or in some other aspects of the region.
Now, some 200 local and overseas law enforcement officials attended the ACCP event this week right here at home. Well, for a look at our weekly schedule of programming here on CIG Television, you can go online to gis.gov.ky. If you happen to miss today's news update or any stories this week, you can go to the Cayman Islands Government Facebook page as well as the CIG Television YouTube channel. I'm Donna Bush, as always, thanking you for joining us, wishing you a wonderful and, of course, a very, very safe night and weekend. Until Monday, have a good one. Did you know that planning permission is required for a shed? Did you know you should check with the department as a planning and permit application may be required? Did you know planning permission is required to clear land by mechanical means? You should check with the department as a planning and permit application may be required.
Boating, fishing, and water sports in the Cayman Islands are great, but keep a cool head. Here are 7 tips for fun and safe sea outings. Number 1. Use a checklist to plan your outing. Check the weather forecast, make a float plan, and share it with someone who is remaining on land, stating where you're going, with whom, and when you're expected to return. Visit your nearest marine supply store to get your safety gear. This includes signaling mirrors, whistles, and a flare kit. It's also very important to have onboard flotation devices and life vests for each person. There are different types of vests. Some are for water sport activities such as snorkeling, and others are for going on offshore boating or on fishing trips. Number 2. These items can be lifesavers in case of an accident or bad weather. Number 3. Use a motor kill switch, especially if you're boating alone. In case of a leak or breakdown, always stay with the boat until help arrives. If you capsize, an emergency beacon or locator device can send a distress signal to inform the authorities of your location. Larger flares will indicate distress to a boat, airplane, or search and rescue officials. Number 4. In addition to sunscreen, food, and beverages, it would be smart to have a cell phone. Make sure your marine radio works. Cayman boaters use Channel 16 to communicate. Number 5. Also, don't forget your anchor and sufficient rope. Number 6. Boat operators should be familiar with the local waters and reefs, as well as the capabilities and functions of the vessels they are using. Always obey the rules of the sea and the marine environment, and have courtesy for others. Number 7. Alcohol and salt water do not mix, especially if you're the captain. Some useful contact numbers are 911. The RCIPS Marine Base is 649-7710, and the Port Authority is 949-2055. Smooth sailing, all!
Did you know that planning permission is required for an addition, alteration, or any material change to your house? The 10% rule no longer exists. Did you know you should check with the department as a planning and permit application may be required?
The Esterly-Tibbetts Highway 3-lane roundabout is ready for drivers. It's time to make sure you know how to use it. First, know which exit you need to take. Pay attention to lane arrows and signs. Make sure you use your signal to change lanes or exit the roundabout. To turn left, you always approach in the left-hand lane and indicate left. To drive straight ahead, you need to be looking out for signs and road markings indicating which lane to use. Get in one of the lanes marked with a straight-through arrow. If turning right, you must use the right-hand lane and indicate accordingly. To use the roundabout safely, remember these 3 tips. Know your exit, pick your lane, and signal to make your turn.